So today's show's very much about building your brand, and in particular, key insights learnt from hosting over 400 shows. I think you've been running now for about 10 years now, Chris, with Voice America. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. 10
shows.
years in September.
Sorry?
10 years in September it will be.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, isn't it? So that you've been able to do that. So it's quite a legacy you've already left. And one of the things that we feel very strongly about, those of you who are regular to this show, is that we fundamentally believe that we very much should be here for your growth and business growth, and recognize that running a business can be a very lonely journey. And if you enjoy these shows, if you could very kindly do share to your friends and your network, that'd be really appreciated. And do subscribe if you enjoy this as well. And if you've not already done so, do say hello in the chat. Say what you're really passionate about and why you do it. And also be bold with your questions. It makes it much more fun and dynamic if you guys are able to interact in that way. It's really appreciated. And in addition to wanting to make a difference as an organization, I think Chris is a very big driver for you as well, isn't it? We want to be known for helping you to bring your sales forward, amplifying your brand, getting your time back. And as part of that, we show you the how and the methodologies and the systems so you can get great results. And a very quick intro from myself and Muriel before we properly introduce Chris. I'm the founder of Business Growth Bureau. It was founded about a bit over 7 years ago now. And I believe fundamentally in the importance of circular relationships where everyone wins out of that relationship. And I'm very lucky to have Muriel as the right-hand person that makes sure everything happens behind the scenes. So very blessed in that way. And Muriel's been able to put up with me for a very long time. So definitely deserves a medal for that. But and what I'd like to do is just bounce around who the real Chris Cooper is. So I've known personally Chris for about 3 or 4 years now, and also the great privilege of inviting him in to work with some of our clients as well. And I know that everyone that Chris touches and speaks with and gets involved with goes away feeling really enriched and recharged, and also has a much clearer sense of purpose. And I think that's one of the reasons why you informed your show to start with about 10 years ago, Chris, wasn't it? Because you wanted to touch as many lives as possible as part of your live streams. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I set a goal when I was 40, Rupert, that I wanted to help over 1 million people beyond my client base, and it wasn't a financially focused goal really. It was more that I wanted to help educate the world to maybe do business better, do business for good, and to care a bit more and contribute to some of the things that I'd seen through my life and my career that I felt could do with improving and stepping up. So that was the intention. I mean, as when you do these things and you do them every week and you put a lot of money and time into them, there becomes a point where you think, I do need to generate some income for me too. But that was the aim. It was to help. I think, I was chatting with one of our guests, Neil, you've had on the show, Neil Lawton, who's a good friend of mine, the adventurer, and also David Fox Pitt recently. And we were chatting, and those guys are very generous philanthropically in the things that they do. And I suppose the way that I help the world is by freely providing great content that helps educate and add value to people. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Now, I want to just ask you a little bit of a question, Chris, before we get into the meat of today. If going back in terms of time, I know that when you were basically very much in your formative years as a child, as it were, your father was trying to persuade you to go into a particular career, wasn't he? And there was a particular event which really for you was quite life-changing. Yeah. Can you just go into very briefly a little bit of detail over what that was and what really made you refocus in terms of what you wanted to do?
Yes, yeah, so I was born into a working class family. We came from Scunthorpe. I was explaining to a client in Burnley and his team last week that's probably 3 or 4 places down in the glamour list from Burnley. Really, if you worked in you lived in Scunthorpe, the natural progression was to work in the steelworks, and my dad had done it. My grandfather did it. He went into farming a little bit after some ill health. But that was a natural progression, really. And the horizons were very, very narrow. And I remember my dad, when I was about 13, he took me to an open evening at the steelworks with lots of other fathers and their children. And we had a walk around, and it was like, to me, it was like hell on earth. It was dark. It was noisy. The stories my dad had told me of people dying under the train that went around carrying steel around the station. And so this molten metal was flying around. It was noisy. And afterwards, we went into this room for a few sandwiches. They had lots of fathers and their children. This tall chap walked in, and I'll never forget it, because my dad straightened up and he whispered in my ear, "It's the CEO." And it was the CEO of British Steel. Now, my dad had never met him before, and he walked straight over to me and said, "Hello, son." He said, "Did you enjoy that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "When you're older, would you like to come and work for us?" You must be joking. And I got in the car, and my dad just yelled at me nearly all the way home. Said, "How could you do that? How could you say that to the CEO of the steelworks, telling me you don't want to work there? One day you might need a job, son. What are you going to do?" And by the time he finished, I just found it coming out of my lips. "But Dad, you don't enjoy working there. Why would I?" And I think that's what I realized probably in that moment, that maybe my destiny lay outside of Scunthorpe, and I left to go to college, and never came back except to see family, really.
No, and the rest is history, as they say, isn't it? So, I think it's through all of us. We have different periods of our lives, don't we? Where there's something which actually is life-changing, and it is fundamental to what makes us who we are today as well. So I've always been moved by that story, Chris. So thank you very much for sharing that. And we've got some great topic today to discuss, which is about building your brand, but key insights learned from hosting over 400 shows. And these are the points we'll be discussing today. And I'd be really interested to get your feedback, those of you who are as part of the live stream today. So do interject with those questions and those thoughts. Let's have a very quick look now. I've seen that Tom had a slight technical problem. I think it presumably is just local to you. If you do have a problem on Facebook, you always jump over to YouTube. It is streamed over YouTube at the same time. But, anything is streamed, there can be the odd challenge. Everything seems to be okay this end. You've not noticed anything, Muriel, on your side, have you?
No, it's absolutely fine. It has been all the way through.
Yeah, okay. So, and welcome, Renato, as well. And thank you very much for sharing a little bit more about your passion and vision. And those of you who joined us just now as well, and Daniel, of course, early on, do share us a little bit about yourself, what you're really passionate about. And if you've got a really good question for Chris, then do reach out and ask him a question. So let's get to the meat of this now, Chris. So just bear me a second. So in terms of, just tell us a little bit about what sort of led you to hosting these 400 shows originally. First of all, how did you hear about Voice America as a platform itself? How did that come about?
Yeah, they contacted me, Rupert. I've been running a group called the Achiever Program for about 7 years, which is really, I coach leaders and teams and build engaged workplaces. And I had a number of clients that I was coaching, and I brought them together into these little these groups, and we started having events and various things. And I started interviewing people and to a live audience. And then one day I put some of these recordings onto my website, and one day Voice America contacted me and said, "Look, we've listened to some of your recordings, and we like the sound of your accent. And as Americans over here, we like British accents, and we just wondered if you'd be interested in hosting a show on our platform. We're the leading online radio platform in the world, and we thought you'd be good to talk with." So they kind of courted me for a few months, and then I realized that actually I was feeling quite flattered, and then I realized that I paid them and they didn't pay me. However, as I'd set this goal at 40, I'd had this, kind of achieved my intentions up to that point, and I felt very, very, fortunate to have done that. And I set this goal, and this sort of hit nicely. And I did a trial for 13 weeks. We had I mean, one of these sessions, Rupert, we had 3 people turned up to me running this session with a group, and I thought, God, I put so much work into this, and then within a month on Voice America, we'd had 6,300 different accesses from different people, and so it was quite a jump for me. That was actually a channel record for a news show, because it's not quite like commercial radio, but I enjoyed it, and I'm curious, and I love to find out about people, and realize it was just a great way to learn, really.
That's very interesting. And obviously, I know that you've interviewed a lot of people over that time. And what stories can you particularly recall which were derived from successes derived from hardship? Are there 2 or 3 that you can think of which perhaps our viewers here today would really appreciate hearing?
Well, I think this is so important, Rupert, because at the moment there are a lot of people who are suffering from hardship or feeling, and a lot of my clients, I mean, some of them have made a few poor choices in the past, plus we've got COVID, plus we've got, furloughing work situations, and those are coming together at the moment, and they can feel like life is really, really tough. And particularly for young people as well, with this things like teenage suicide, and which is a real worry at the moment too. And I think what I have learned, because when you do 400 interviews, and I probably had more than that in terms of people on the show, there's some themes and patterns, and I do meet a lot of people who've been through tragedy, maybe abuse in childhood. I mean, I think of Richard McCann, whose mum was the first person to be murdered by the Yorkshire Ripper, where his journey to speaking on big stages all over the world and inspiring people. I did an interview with Brian Main and Carol Macy. I'll never forget. Many years ago, Brian has created goal mapping and has books and a following around the world. And in his late 20s, he couldn't read or write. He came from a fairground family. Fairground had gone bust. He owed a couple of £1 million. And Carol, who's an amazing coach and leadership expert, explained when I asked her how she got into goal setting, it was when a father committed suicide, then a mother committed suicide because she was upset. And from that point, life was hard, and she discovered goal setting, and she turned her life around. So there's so many people, Rupert, that there's so many themes of people who've lost family members young, or I was talking to Beyonce and Jay-Z's lawyer this week, Jennifer Justice, and she was explaining how the poor background she had actually attracted Jay-Z and the world of hip hop. It comes from the streets, and the fact she kind of came from the streets as well made her even more attractive to work with. So a lot of people have been through hardship. Life is full of ups and downs, and I would say that every person I've interviewed has experienced a tough low. I know, Rupert, you had the challenge yourself with one of your businesses. We all go, don't we, through highs and lows, but we learn more on the lows, and they equip us for the highs. So it's a natural part of life, really.
Yeah. I think I think there is a lot of learning through hardship. In fact, a number of you probably will recall, first of all, Jessica, that you introduced to.
Yeah, Jessica.
She's got. In fact, if you guys want to see the recording of Jessica Richards, actually on our website, so do scroll back and have a look. It's a very inspiring interview from her childhood, and also, in terms of Marco Robinson as well. He and his mother were thrown out on the streets when he was a very young age, and he was living on park benches for a long time. He's obviously very successful now, but I think it's sometimes these experiences which actually help to define us as well, isn't it? So although it's dreadful at the time, and obviously none of us want to live through those circumstances. So, but yeah, so.
And Roger Masterson and Neil Lawton both lost fathers at a young age. They've been on your show as well. Those have inspired them to step up and.
No, thank you. I mean, also that's been really inspiring, and obviously even your journey, going from what your dad was. He obviously was very proud of taking you through that experience. You obviously totally shattered his illusion in about 15 seconds flat. So I'm sure. forgiven you for that. But,
it was funny. It was funny. It was that story came to me while my dad died a couple of years ago of 2.5 years ago now of pancreatic cancer, and I sat by his bedside for 4 days with him till the end. And that was one of the stories that came through my mind about that, how that had happened together, and how that had inspired me to want to step up. And I didn't want to go to the steelworks. I didn't want my family to have to go to the steelworks. And thank goodness some people do. But that's his life inspired me to step up, really. And he worked really hard. We worked double shifts so we could go on holidays and things like that. It wasn't easy for him.
Yeah, obviously a very proud man as well, no doubt, of his contribution to society, and obviously he's had a big impact on you in a very positive way, Chris. So we've got obviously those great experiences to be grateful for, I guess. You mentioned also about you can never be too old or too young. Have you got? Can you think of, to start with, perhaps a couple of examples of people who perhaps really where things have really progressed at a younger age, and who's really helped to define them who they are now, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I can. I'm just trying to. I can't. I've got to confess, I can't remember the names. But I remember a very young guy in the digital tech space, and he was building all sorts of apps, and he got an amazing office in Dallas. And he was only a young fella. I think he was. I think he thought I was past it when he asked me how old I was. And was in my archive, there's a guy who set up a wine company at a very young age. And I think what I see, Rupert, at a young age is people have got, they've got energy and tenacity. Sometimes the naivety as well can actually be helpful. But on the counter side, I've interviewed people whose success has come relatively late. And I think the benefit we have when we get older is we have more wisdom. So we might not quite have the energy, but we've got the wisdom, which hopefully can, move us forward quicker.
Yeah. So that's my excuse anyway. So whether people believe it's another matter. And obviously there's some amazing people that we perhaps both know, and perhaps some you've interviewed as well, that where they actually are perhaps of the older generations, as it were. Is there someone particular that springs to mind on that who inspires you?
Yeah, I mean, I was very inspired by Barry Shaw, who came on. He's the if anybody saw him, he was quite a out there American from Honywood, and I just found him fascinating. How he had a successful career actually, but then he had this awful moment when he didn't feel very well, and suddenly got this rare illness and was paralyzed, and we spent 4 years being turned over, literally. And what he did at a late age, he's learned to. He still has help. I think he's probably. I don't upset him if he knew, but I think he's probably maybe 70, something like that. And he's got this whole new life around bringing joy to the world. That's what he decided. He's, Oprah Winfrey loves his work. I think over 1 million people have had his joy cards, and he's got these videos, to tell people never to look down on anybody, only ever look down on them when you're helping them up. And he's got these very joyful messages and created a whole world around it. And then I love people sport. You're never too late to learn sport. So Rupert, you've got the chance. You could learn something maybe and become a world champion. I don't know, but I've become very friendly with a wonderful person called Jane Handsome, and she inspired me because she started running at 40. She'd done some when she was younger, but overweight. Said she smoked, drank too much. Worked at a marketing agency. At 40, she did her first marathon. I think it was with PlayStation. By the age of 50, she was a world triathlon and Ironman world champion, which she achieved in Kona in Hawaii. That transition in 10 years just shows what's possible. And I think there's a Tony Robbins quote, people overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but they considerably underestimate what they can achieve in 10. Well, she went from, completing the marathon to a world champion in 10 years.
Wow. I mean, that's quite amazing, isn't it? And, I live in great awe of people like that, because certainly, you know, I might be quite disciplined over working and things like that. But my not so disciplined over exercise, and that's obviously one of the reasons we've got a dog. You know, so at least in the lovely period of lockdown we're living at the moment, at least I do get out a couple of times a day, which is really nice. So, and obviously I think there's some gas switch as well, which over time where things have perhaps happened to them and they're no longer of this world, and but they're particularly memorable to you for all sorts of reasons because they've very much left some form of lasting legacy as well. So have you got a couple of stories you want to share about that, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, there's 4 people that spring to mind, which is quite sad. I'll mention 2. I mean, some people might know Jonathan Farl from Rockstar Mentoring. Jonathan was at 38, and his life ended falling off a cruise ship. I'm not quite sure whether we really know what happened, but he was an astonishing young man and was very, very successful. I mean, the last time we met up in the Shard about probably 18 months ago and shared a glass of wine, and he had shares in 43 different companies. And I think the thing I took from Jonathan was, you know, he invested in companies who got it didn't just have a product, they also had a system that generated recurring revenues. So it might be that they got a product with an after sales service that required recurring, or alternatively there was a limited life on the product, and then you needed to keep on buying, but somehow you bought into a package, and they kept the customer at a relationship for a long time, and those were the kind of companies he invested in, and he can encourage me to do the same thing with my business. And then I always mentioned Stephen Sutton. Stephen was only 19; he died of teenage cancer, but this man at 19 was just young man. He was just phenomenal. I mean, he said to me, he said, I'll never forget, at the end of our interview, and it was only 3 weeks before we died, he said, Chris, he said, I've been thinking that, you know, cancer's just, it sucks, Chris, but it's given me so much motivation, but I've got so little time. Yet I look around the world and I see so many people with so much time and so little motivation. Please, when I go on, Chris, remind people to make every second count. So I took that as a real message, Rupert, that we should make every second count. And I think one of the secrets that I learned through all of these interviews is what's so important is your presence. You know, being there for people. Your stillness, your calm gives confidence. Who you're being, and coming from a good place, it exudes confidence in others, and it attracts people to want to come into your sphere. And I'm testing that more and more, Rupert. I mean, I've had 8 since I think Thursday. My son doesn't really appreciate me at all. He thinks I'm an idiot, I think. But I haven't showed him these. But I thought, I get so many lovely letters from people thanking me for the work I've done for them, and talking about, you know, who I've become. And I printed out 5 letters, and I've had 3 calls since Thursday from people saying how I've contributed to them. And I think the simple message is, you know, okay, I'm very good at my craft now, but I'm really there, and I listen to them. And I've learned that through some of the special guests that I've had on the show who are more interested than trying to be interesting. You know, I think that's something I think is really important.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Obviously, I'd like to very much return to a couple of points that we've got planned for today, but there's a question that's being asked here. I think it's by Daniel, as it says by Facebook user here, so I'm having to guess the name. So I've got that, may have got that wrong. Now, the question there is probably really more about a sales question, which is a little bit off topic today, but really a point around all of this, though. A lot of people can have real issues over lack of confidence, can't they? And this can also have the effect of self-sabotaging in perhaps a sales-based environment. I just wondered, sort of generally, because obviously you're very passionate about helping people to find their true values and how you can help directors of companies put their teams together and get the best out of their teams. You must have come across many instances where as individuals, there's an element of self-sabotage there as well, and perhaps that holds us back in different ways. That's a bit related to Daniel's question. Any thoughts around that in a sales environment? How that tends to impact? What are some of the solutions around that?
Well, I think one of the key challenge can be is that people can come across as being desperate, and I think when you come across as being desperate, then because you really need that next sale, you need it because your company is maybe close to why you need the cash flow, you've got the bills coming up, and that desperation, unfortunately, it sends out an energy to other people, and they pick up on it. They pick on something's not quite right, and that could lead them to feeling a bit suspicious. It can lead them to worrying about your motives, and therefore I think the thing that it is I think is important is to work on yourself such that actually you're calm and relaxed each day. Maybe do some meditating, you go out and walk, but you're calm and you're still, so that when you're able to be with somebody, you're at your very best, because there are trigger points in life. You mentioned earlier, I think, something about touch points, and there are touch points. So touch points when you're with a customer, a prospective customer, when you're on the phone to somebody, and if you can make each one of those a success in a calm way, then each of those moments will add up and contribute to your success. So I think what you have to do, and there's a question there, if it's the one you're referring to about trying to sell something that people don't want to buy. I mean, there's always people. You've got to go to enough people, I think, in some out of 10 sales conversations, you might find one person wants to buy. But what we do is we might have 3 conversations and find no one wants to buy, but the next one might want to. So I think we have to go to enough people. We have to try and help them to buy, really, rather than feeling that we're trying to sell something to them, and very much have their best interests at heart. So I think I don't know the particular idea that's mentioned here, but I think there's something about how you come across, and there's something about how you position that product. But if you come across as desperate, you'll send that message, that energy across to people. We all vibrate at different levels. People will feel that, and you feel it even over the net if someone's calm or if they're.
That's really interesting as well. And I think the other part related to that is, in a sense, with speaking with potential clients, is about trying to remove the risk. You've got to first of all make sure the product or service you're offering to that client, there is actually a good fit. If there isn't, it is actually better to do the honourable thing, isn't it? And say, look, really don't feel that either I'm right for you or our product solution is right for you. But you've got access, we're glad to give you access to these certain free tools, which will help you. Or, by the way, have you considered going to ABC maybe to help you? But the other part is actually making it a very safe decision for people to want to buy from you too, isn't it? So it may be that you somehow reduce the barrier to entry to make it easier for that person to come in. But I think the main part I wanted to just focus on is this whole thing around self-sabotage, because I think all of us have these voices sometimes in our head, don't they? We perhaps get up in the morning, but perhaps not. Something's happened the night before, which has impacted how we feel. And you've got a particularly difficult call or meeting coming up, and that can negatively impact the way we think. Have you got sort of strategies you'd recommend around that, so you can put that back, those thoughts in that box, and move it to one side?
Well, I mean, we had her on the show before, and I don't know how Nikki J. Owen has these lovely things called My Healing Hub, and I do these. They're great. You listen to them in the morning, and lovely music. Nikki's getting you breathing, and I think breathing's really important. Actually, is just taking deep breaths, getting the oxygen in, shallow breaths, and we feel more anxious. But I really, I really have come around in later life to seeing the values of that quiet space to calm the nerves. And the other thing I would say is actually a lot of selling is about asking questions. It's not about telling.
Yeah, 100%.
People like to talk,
Yeah.
So you should be maybe when a sales conversation, 90% is somebody doing the talking. You just ask brilliant questions, which then help them to want to buy. I've probably been out with. I used to train salespeople at Mars, and I have worked in sales training with some clients. I've been in hundreds of calls with salespeople and observed them, and where they kind of fail is where they haven't got themselves psyched up. Maybe they're going with a number that they want to achieve out, and they don't know anything about the customer. They don't ask enough questions, and they don't generate the rapport and have a be able to have a special conversation with people. Another thing they don't do is they don't read the type of buyer as well. So I work around understanding the flow of people. And people have different. Some people want more detail. Some people want want to work on ideas with you. Others love to connect and talk and chat socially as well before you sell. Others want to get straight down to business, and then they will chat after you. And you've got to kind of work that out, really.
Yeah. And a sort of question related to that, I guess, as well. And this is, in fact, many ways reflect what we're experiencing now. In fact, it does reflect how we are having to deal with things now. Obviously, a lot of us are very used to interact with clients, potential clients, face to face, through physical meetings. In fact, I know that, traditionally you would normally go out to see a lot of people. And the same with myself. I actually do enjoy meeting people. With a 2D forms of communication, which effectively, having a Zoom call, for example, is a 2D means of communication. How do you? It's much more difficult to pick up body language as a case in point. But what signs do you look for when having a conversation with people in terms of trying to measure engagement and to make sure you're always in tune with what the other person is sort of really saying?
Yeah, I actually I've done a lot of work online of late, and I mean last week I did 5 days of client work last week, and it was all online. I think I did 10 coaching calls, 4 consultancy calls, a full day leadership program with people, and what the conclusion I've come to is you really can make it work online, and there's a barrier. Firstly, I've supported some of my friends actually who are struggling at the moment, who are consultants and facilitators on how to operate online, because they think you can't do it, but you can. I think what you have to do is, again, you have to obviously look at the body language and sense how they're feeling. I feel the energy actually even over Zoom about how people are feeling. So I know whether people are I get a sense of whether people are feeling nervous, but I also get a real positive boost of energy when things are flowing really well. So I think that's key. I also think it's good to have nice warm-up exercises. So yesterday I had a program with 12 people on it, and the first thing I got them to do was we didn't have lots of time because we had a full agenda. So I just said, why don't you just share maybe, a goal that you've got outside of work that you'd love to achieve in the next year. And we got some great things came up, and people wanted to get fitter, and then decided that some of those people were going to get fitter together, and one was going to stop smoking and another one was going to do X, Y, and Z. And so that opened up the energy for a start. Then the other thing that are great is breakout rooms. So you can take a lot of pain out if you've got a few people by putting them into breakout rooms, letting them chat, and using maybe a whiteboard. And so I actually got some last week I gave a copy of my book away to the person who came up with the best Zoom backdrop. Had some fun. We had a Mars landing. Somebody came up with. We had somebody was quite cheeky and put my book as their backdrop. But people had long hair and mustaches, and so that created fun at the beginning as well. So be a bit playful, I think, probably the answer.
It reminds me a little bit of that incident where I think it was. It's interesting. It was talk about Zoom again for a second, but it was the CEO of Zoom actually did a public talk, and but there was a particular incident where it was a very serious meeting. I think it was in front of some of the American judiciary or something like this, and this person accidentally got a cat emoji in his face, hadn't he? And he couldn't figure out how to switch the thing off. through this conference.
Last week as well.
Sorry?
Someone turned up as a cat last week.
So I thought, the thing is, it was amazing. It was such a serious thing. And he said, well, perhaps I'll just carry on as I am. I think he decided to bring the meeting to conclusion. But it was just one of these examples. But interested after on the subject of Zoom, just for a second, and it's been a little bit off topic. But obviously, moving into the new world, there's been a lot of debate as to what the new world's going to look like, and it was predicted that possibly Zoom's market share, not market share, but percentage of revenue would considerably drop. And interesting enough, they projected even coming into a post-COVID world that sales will still go up 40% over the next 12 months. So it's the effect that we're living through now will probably actually have a long-lasting effect. So I think we all need to get used to these forms of communication, even though we will no doubt return to face-to-face conversations as well. So
we know what the lovely thing about it is that it's so much more efficient. Actually, you're not impacting the environment, so you're not driving around and burning fuel. Last week I'd have been in Birmingham, London, and Burnley, and on top of all the work that I had to deliver with people, that would have been taking me, I don't know, that would have exhausted me. I'd have been absolutely shattered this week. But the efficiency of being able to support people from home, and then the amazing thing with what your wonderful thing you're doing here, Rupert, and with Look Forward Thursdays and sharing that online, the technology is here to be able to do this. So I would say with people is, embrace this, utilize it. It can be a very efficient way. It can reduce the costs of running your business actually, and you can actually deliver more work. The challenge has been persuading clients, certainly in my field, that this is as good. However, when you give them experiences that demonstrate it is, then it can really open up an opportunity. Before, people would have made me travel. I mean, I had a session with a new client just over a week ago. We did some work on his purpose in life, and we spent a couple of hours doing that. The following week, he said he'd had the best performance of the business in years, and that was just a 2-hour call online. And I would have gone to London to have to do that normally.
Yeah.
In that 2 hours, he had more time then to go and rather than to entertain me for the day, he went and straight away and sat down with every member of staff to understand their goals, because he realized that was part of helping others receive their goals, as part of his purpose in life. And so many things came out, and the following week they all, for the first time, brought new business in, which they'd never done since the company had started.
Yeah. And if you can energize the teams like that as well, then of course they tend to perform far better, and they end up by getting much better results for the company or organization. So, which leads in really nicely with the next question is, in terms of how do business leaders reinvent themselves, especially as we start to come to this new world that we're moving into, whatever world that looks like. How can people reinvent themselves? How can they create a real sense of energy amongst the teams and amongst the environment as we move forwards?
Well, I think one of the things I do believe is really key, and I've been doing a lot of work with a lot of people with this of late, is to understand your own purpose in life. And you talk about that, Rupert, and I've got this particular methodology I've used for a lot of years. I know my purpose. It's about helping people realize their true potential, business and individuals. That's what I do in every conversation. And I'm someone who aims to be inspiring, take responsibility, have freedom, prove it's possible, and have fun while I'm doing it. And that's what I'm about. But what I've realized when I help business leaders to understand what their true purpose is about, they come out and they take the red pill, if you think of the Matrix, rather than just the blue pill and do nothing with it. When they take the red pill, the most amazing things can happen. And I've tracked this over a number of years with people, and I've seen the most phenomenal results when people embrace and live their purpose. And that purpose gives you clues as to what's important. We also link that with business purpose. Sometimes the purpose of the company, if it's a smaller company. So people who've discovered it, Jack Canfield is one of my people I've interviewed, and he was a school teacher, and he wanted to help more people add value than in the classroom. Today 500 million copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul have been issued. We had Paul Hargreaves on the show from Cotswold Fair, and on this, Paul was a charitable background, and he wanted to help people who've been in prison and things get into employment, and that led to Cotswold Fair. I don't think that fully worked out, but now they're focused on people, planet, and profits. And Ivan Meisner wanted to help people connect. He had 3 or 4 networking groups, and he told me he decided to write a document. He'd read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, and thought, how can I leverage this? So he wrote a 500-page document about how these groups worked. And today, BNI has something like 3,500 breakfast meetings every week. So one little thing, maybe with your salesperson, there was a guy called Sean Casemore I interviewed, and Sean came from a manufacturing background, and he very quickly got his consultancy moving so quick. And I said, what was the secret? And he said, it was this. He said, I wrote a list of everybody that I knew, and I knew 230 people, including my mum and dad. And I rang every one of them in the first 2 weeks of me starting my business. I rang every single one of those people back to back, told them what I was doing, and to see how they could help.
Right.
We look at we spend all our time on social media, kind of fishing for things. But what's all those people that you do know that you've not spoken to for ages?
Yes.
You're connected with on LinkedIn. Do what Dawn did and get in touch with them.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's also so important to get in touch with your past clients as well, and just make sure they're okay, and and also look to see how you can help them. Not necessarily all about business, but it's just about showing that you care as well, isn't it? Which is so important. And that leads in really nicely to the next question, which is basically, how can we contribute to a better world, especially as we move into this new world order? What does that look like? What difference can we make?
What does the new world order look like? Or how do we?
Good point.
That's a big question, isn't it? I mean, we're going into a phase now where a lot of people are going to need help. There are industries that are doing well at the moment, despite the COVID situation. We're going to need to work more online. Got to work more with technology. What I would say with people is that, look, as Stephen Sutton said, make every second count. Get really clear about what your purpose is in life, how you're going to make a contribution. Put people, planet as important as profit. I think focus on where you can deliver value. Ikigai is a very good little model if you're wondering what to do. Ikigai is the Chinese. If you come across Ikigai, Japanese sort of philosophy, you find something that you love, you find something that you're good at, you also find something that people want to buy, that you can make money at, and you ensure that the world needs it. So when those collide together, in the center is Ikigai. And through your work, look to bring more love and caring into it and less fear. And the other thing I would say with people too is today, with technology, if we look at the US elections, we look at what happened with Brexit, there are people out there online who want to impact your subconscious and bring you over to their way of thinking. I've been was very shocked around election time with speaking to so many people in the US when I met people I knew people who I so respected, and then found some of them were furious that Donald Trump had been unfairly lost the election, and it had been they'd been cheating all over the place. And then I'd speak to someone else who was saying it was the fairest election in the world, and someone else who talked to me about these pedophilia underground organizations of wealthy people that are, there are people out there who are trying to get a share of your subconscious. It's the most precious thing. You've got to protect it, and you've got to make sure that you've got a sense of reality of what maybe the truth might well be. And you've also got to protect yourself, because you want to be able to function and add value and have energy about you and be able to contribute. And if you listen to all of this stuff and you feel awful about it and feel disenfranchised and find you just following others because they enable you to feel part of a community or a group, just protect your subconscious, Be very
Yeah.
careful with it at the moment.
I 100% agree with it. I think there's a lot. I think we had Michael Romling on a couple of times and others, but this thing about the reptilian brain, because we seem to also get drawn into, it's not just about some of the negativity on social media. There's lots of positivity as well, but some of the negativity. But you only need Sam, who you know well, Chris, don't you? And obviously Miro does too. He switched off all his news alerts from Sky News. No reflection on the quality of news from Sky News, and overall it's pretty good. But he was finding it was negatively affecting his work patterns and his sleep and things like that. So by just switching that part off, and also perhaps restricting how much we consume. We've obviously had the budget this week. We've also had lots of other things going on. Some positive. There's also been some negative things. But actually, if we keep on filling our heads with negativity all the time, we're just feeding the reptilian part of the brain, which puts us in a bad place, really, doesn't it? So it's all about looking outwards and wanting to help and support others, really. So I think, Chris, sorry, did you want to? Sorry,
the point somebody had made on there about, but much less primary energy, much less complexity, much less transport. I think there's also technology is also continuously moving forward. But there's one thing that we can be certain of. One certainty is there's always going to be change. So we've got to manage through that, haven't we? Yeah. And I talk to a lot of people who are at the cutting edge now of technology, and people at the cutting edge of data. There's huge gaps in data. We realized that through what's happened with COVID. There's a lot of information we don't know. So people are kind of helping through data, through different types of products, through connecting people, through there are lots and lots of opportunity right now to make a difference. It might mean pivoting. It might mean getting a bit smarter with tech, but make a positive ripple. That's the aim, I think, is to make sure that your life is led well, and you can look back when you're older, enjoy it all over again, because actually you made an effort, you contributed, you tried, and all those people that you mixed with, you made them feel better when you left them.
Yeah, lovely. I love that. That's a lovely way to sort of wrap this up. We will have a little bit of a quick round robin in about 4 or 5 minutes. So those of you who've very kindly engaged today, and obviously a number of you have, sorry if we haven't picked up on everyone today, do drop in some questions for Chris. Chris told me he loves difficult questions, so do keep those coming. We'll have a little bit of a wrap up in about 5 minutes, and I'll just give a little bit of a summary over a few things sort of coming up, if that's all right. And in particular, next week, we've got a lovely lady joining us, a lovely lady called Tia. I think she's Swedish, if I got that correctly, and perhaps Mira will put me right in just a minute. And she's going to be why work with passion to achieve your mission and business, and what are the key drivers for starting a business, understanding the challenges of being a female founder of a tech company, the financial benefits of working with charities, social enterprises. An interesting point, I'd be really keen to ask her this question, why she feels philanthropy, and I can never say that word properly, is a thing of the past, and also understanding the importance of mutually beneficial partnerships. Now, Tia's and her organization, which is called What Impact, we've sort of known her for about 3 years or so. And had great pleasure with working with her and her colleagues over a period of time, especially in terms of helping her to form really good partnerships. So I'm sure it'll be a great interview next week. And also in terms of, I just encourage you all, there's a number of you who are quite regular on these live streams, is try and think about how you can help others as well. Build on deep, meaningful relationships, built on trust. That's absolutely important. Now, I won't go into any detail particularly about this, but we did have our mini conference on Tuesday this week, and some really good questions came out from that. And we've got the next one, the 6th of April. We'll go to a little bit more detail in the coming weeks, but you can book that online now. And basically, to access these Thursday sessions, very straightforward. Just go to the homepage of our website, choose the live stream option, the weekly live stream options. You can either choose to hit continue, which gives the option to book just that next session, or if you choose recurring, you can book in for multiple weeks. And so do feel you can join us. And those of you who want to measure your internal performance as an organization and what you could be doing a little bit better, we've created now a sales and marketing diagnostic health check. It takes between 4.5 and 6.5 minutes to complete. And when you finish that, you also get an 8-page report, which is emailed to you about 30 minutes afterwards. You just click the link and download the report, and you get some great insights that we can obviously drill down with you what that means. Again, that's no cost. And Chris's contact details are here. So do reach out to chriscooper.co.uk, or on his phone number there, which is 07887632266. And obviously Chris's email address is at chris@chriscooper.co.uk. So I think on that, actually, it didn't take us very long to go through that, actually, did it? So what would be really nice is to come back to you again, Chris, and also Muriel, if you could rejoin us as well, please, if that's all right. Just give a second for Muriel to press her magic buttons. So those of you just trying to see whether we had some last-minute questions come in here. So again, Facebook user, I don't know whether it's Daniel. Can you remember to put your name in, Daniel? Because obviously I may have got that wrong. Can you read that? Let me just try and bring that on the screen just for a second. There we go. Can you see that question okay, Chris?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you choose to make change happen?
Yeah.
I think this is about, the challenge sometimes we're making real change happen is particularly if you're the leader of it, it takes some bravery and some courage to do it. I'm creating something at the moment I'm calling my Elevation Collective, which is I'm bringing some of the amazing people who are change makers in the world together into groups for conversations. That's challenging me a little bit when you go into people who've have done some of the most amazing things you can imagine, including maybe running the space station or founding, TEDx or TED or whatever. It takes a brave, even though you know them, to go with a proposition and bring them into a community. So, but I feel the reason I'm making that change happen is I feel compelled to make it happen because I've had the privilege to get to know these people, and I'm in a unique position to be able to do it. And actually, I always think of if I didn't do it, I'd be doing the world a disservice. Because if you can bring those sorts of people together and it elevates their thinking and their contribution, then that can have an enormous ripple around the planet. And therefore, it's actually that higher sense of purpose that is helping me choose to make change happen in that area, even though I might feel quite faced by it in talking to people about it. But I've trialed it with a group and it's been amazing. So that also helps too, gives you more confidence when you can enroll others into it and they are actively nudging you and pushing you and supporting you forward.
It's really the Simon Sinek stuff there, isn't it? So you talk about a lot about the why and the impact it can have on you personally and your business. It also ties a lot with your mission and purpose too. So if you can make sure your personal values and business values are well aligned, then it stands you in really good stead too, doesn't it? So.
We talk about this, and I mean, Nikki's mentioned she does work there around purpose as well. And you talk about, and we talk about Simon, and it's you listen to this, don't you? And you think, is this, is it just people are trying to sell us a particular type of product or whatever? I think I look back over my life, and I'm 52 years old now, and at 28 I gained a sense of my purpose. It's one of the biggest, most important guiding lights I've ever had in my life. It really is, and it energizes me every day, and it's energized me through tough times and through right now is quite a buoyant time, which I'm quite surprised really, but a lot of work in. I had to dig deep with my purpose early in the year, but it is, I think it's critical to discover it and allow it to fire you up and help you to as a guiding point, but the places that it can take you to as well, and the experiences that can result from it. Put some time into understanding and discovering that purpose, and then once you know it and you know deep down inside that it's right, don't let it go. Keep moving it forward.
Those are great tips. And I suppose the other thing as well is, as leaders of businesses, if we're inspired and people buy into our mission and vision and purpose, then that inspires others, doesn't it? Inspires your teams, your leaders, also your customers start to feel that as well. They start to feel that sense of caring, and it accelerates this whole relationship of trust. I think Daniel's asking another question. I'm not sure you can pick that up. Can you let me bring that up very quickly for a second? So can you?
I mean, I've got a little story for Daniel here that might just help. I don't know. You may or may not have heard this story about there's a story. I don't know who the company was, but there's a story about two shoe salesmen who went to a African country, and one of them went there. They were sent by their shoe company to explore the opportunity for shoes, and one of them came back and said, "Look, complete waste of time. Nobody wears shoes." And the other one came back and said, "It's incredible. The opportunity is unlimited. Nobody wears shoes." And I think what it's easy, be careful, Daniel, maybe a lot of your clients might be just concerned about technology perhaps, but there will be some clients who see things differently. There will be some clients who are more open-minded, and there may be some clients who are feeling more environmentally conscious, and you may have been to everybody, I don't know, but don't make generalizations or fall into the trap of making generalizations. I'm not saying you're not doing doing that at the moment, because it's amazing how if you put yourself out there, people who are attracted to what you have and your thinking and your methodology start to appear. But it's about making people aware of you, really. And also, when you express and share what you do to others, make sure it's so simple that person can then go and share that same message onto somebody else, and they can share that message onto somebody else about what it is you do and how you help. But I've had to be a bit mindful with generalizations. I've had time in my life when I've maybe thought, nobody wants to buy this. I've got so much to give, but not enough people to give it to. And actually, what I've realized now is that the opportunity is quite unlimited. It's our minds that limit us. Yeah.
That's our self-limiting belief. So those of you who know Daniel, by the way, which Mira and I certainly do, and I think Nikki and a few others on this call do, will know that Daniel is an incredibly clever man. So he's intellectually, in awe in terms of what he's able to deal with and how he helps other people.
Feel free to call for a chat sometime, Daniel, if you want to. Happy to talk to you.
Yeah, that's good. In fact, Daniel, thank you, Chris, for that offer as well. Right, well, I think we'll call this a wrap. I'm really grateful for everyone joining us today. So thank you for joining us for this Look Forward to Thursday session. As I say, Tia is going to be sharing lots of value next week, so do join in. And she's very good at putting charitable organisations together with corporate sponsors and the other way around as well. And just gone through a funding round too as well. So she's got a business which people have really bought into that passion and desire. So I think lots of words of insight will be coming forwards, and so lots to look forward to. Anyway, enjoy yourselves, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today. And Chris, thanks for being the perfect guest today for a change. So thank you very much. Yes. Cheers. Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.